Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who also ran for president in 2008 and 2016. Governor, it's always good to have you on. For starters, I mean, there's no denying that our allied relationship with Israel has frayed in recent weeks over a difference of opinions when it comes to this Rafah invasion, the humanitarian crisis playing out in Gaza. What do you make of where things stand right now?
Markie, as somebody who's been to Israel over 100 times over the past 50 years, and I was just there in December visiting with the prime minister in a 45-minute meeting. Let me tell you something. I'm just stunned. This is like Joe Biden would have gone back in history and said, let's cancel D-Day because it's really not going to be pretty. No, it isn't. This is war. And the reason it's a war is because Hamas butchers went over and slaughtered innocent Israeli citizens on the holiest day of their week. And we've still got hostages. What I'd like to hear from Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken, and from some others is, where are the U.S. citizen hostages? We haven't been talking about them. Joe Biden hasn't. Anthony Blinken hasn't. And why not? We have Americans who are being held hostage by Hamas. And I heard the U.S. officials say, well, Israel has to determine how they're going to feed these people and clothe these. Wait a minute. It's not Israel's responsibility to do that. And I want to know, why aren't the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Emiratis, the Qataris, how come they're not being asked to take this burden? They're the ones who help finance it. What about the Iranians? We're giving them money. We ought to be giving them grief. This is an insanity played out on our stages, and I'm just stunned that the U.S. government thinks that what we ought to do is pressure Israel. We're pressuring the wrong side here.
So I'm curious, you know, in your what kind of invasion plan do you think Netanyahu would have to put forward for the White House to sign off on it? Because if you're putting yourself in President Biden's shoes, it's going to have to strike the right balance for him, to not only think about innocent lives, but also have to be some stance strong enough for his own political gain come November. What's that going to look like for him that he's going to give the green light to?
The tragedy is, I don't think Joe Biden's going to give a green light because he's thinking politically. He's not thinking principally. And that's what Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't have the luxury of making this a political decision. Israel is in a fight for its life, its existence. If they don't destroy Hamas, Hamas will come back to do more things like they did in this horrific attack on October the 7th. When I hear people talk about, let's have a peace treaty, let's have a ceasefire, we had one. It was October the 6th. It was broken on October the 7th with a slaughter of babies and the rape of many women, the vicious rape that was put on camera and then celebrated by those who perpetuated it. There's no way the Israelis can say, okay, all is forgiven and forgotten. Let's just go back to normality. There can never be that normality again. And it would be really helpful if the president, if he couldn't say he would support Israel in taking out the rest of Hamas, at least just stay out of it, because Israel has no choice here. They have no choice. They've got to destroy Hamas.
I also want to ask you about the former president before I let you go. Trump is also facing criticism this morning for his comments on a podcast where he said this. I'll just read it out loud for everybody. Any Jewish person that votes for Democrats hates their religion. They hate everything about Israel, and they should be ashamed of themselves because Israel will be destroyed. End quote there. The governor, obviously the White House immediately calling the remarks anti-Semitic. Do you see it the same way?
No, it's not anti-Semitic. I think it's probably hyperbolic. Donald Trump, I'm sure, has never said anything hyperbolic before. This would be the first time ever. But the reality is, a lot of what he says is true. If a person is pro-Israel, how can you be pro-Biden? Because the Biden administration has made it very clear they will make concessions to Hamas and concessions to the terrorists, and they won't put pressure to get our hostages out. They haven't even mentioned them in weeks. Why not? What's going on? Is it just because they're afraid to lose Michigan with the large number of pro-Palestinian voters there? There's no other explanation for it.
We'll see what plays out this week, especially as Anthony Blinken is set to travel back once again. Governor Mike Huckabee, it's always good to have you, sir. I appreciate you.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.